Hello, all, and welcome to episode 3 of the Collaboration Podcast series. Now, for this episode, we're looking at why voice is the bit that keeps catching organisations out. With me again is Tom Boyle from Sheffield Teaching Hospitals and Jack Carr, head of our pre-sales team. Jack, I'm going to start with you on this, is why voice is different. And what I mean by that is, why does voice carry more perceived risk than other collaboration tools out there in the marketplace?
So, not to be entirely biased working for a communications company, but and not to gush too much about voice, but I think voice in the UK particularly carries a bit of a cultural heritage for us. It was the first accessible way of two-way communication, and it's been the backbone of communication between businesses and people. But with that, we've never truly moved away from it. We've heard talk in the industry that voice is gone, voice is dead, voice is on the way out, that digital will fully replace, that off-the-shelf written interactions or video interactions will replace it. But what we found is that it's never truly replaced. It's still the most common communication channel across vertical industries. And also, I think the other thing to remember is that it's particularly useful for those who we probably class as the most vulnerable in society as well. So when we consider it from that angle, and particularly I would imagine from a healthcare perspective as well, it's something that is, for me, it's a non-negotiable as part of our communication strategies when speaking to end users and customers. But because it's got that criticality, there's obviously a perceived risk around it, not touching the thing that props up everything else. A lot of the time our digital interactions their failback is, oh, we're terribly sorry, we can't resolve this issue over web chat, please call us. Well, that is our backup. So our backup, if we can make any change to that, which forms now a part of our collaboration tools rather than being standalone platforms, there are some nerves and some risks around what we do with those.
Tom, do you echo with those sentiments as well?
Everything that you said, in all honesty, is that it is for us, aging population, forever aging population, a reliance on a telephone. Even for us now, with all the technology that there is in the world and all the collaboration stacks, is that I think even if we're in a position, and some trusts are, where they've got web chat, live chat, chatbots, you name it, is that they will default to the telephone, because I suppose you're particularly vulnerable when you're wanting to ring a healthcare organisation. You want to know what's going on with your care or the care of a loved one, or you're waiting for an appointment. Is that you do want an interaction with a person.
Yeah.
And there's some nuance as well with the call, is that might not be picked up by all of these different technologies. So there's such a reliance on a telephone. And historically, the telephone has always worked. It's always been something that's kept going. Or even if you did get through to a department in healthcare, the booking system might not be working, but at least they could take your call and let you know. So yeah, it has always sort of taken that sort of provenance. It's always been of utmost importance to everyone.
I completely agree with you as well, because I think obviously, it's the human interaction element, isn't it? There are amazing ways nowadays that we talk with all sorts of organisations about agentic AI and how we can deflect calls away. But actually, at the end of the day, particularly in the industry you're in, the health sector, in the NHS, people want to speak to people. It's quite often an emotional subject, isn't it? And actually, there are loads of different industries and organisations where it's really important for somebody at the end of the day to be able to get hold of somebody. We look at our university clearing solutions as well, is that you can have as many, on A-level results day, you can have as many agents as you want or bots as you want. But if somebody gets some results and they're just a mark off or something like that, 100% you'll find 5 family members giving a university a quick call to make sure that they can speak to somebody to secure the place. So it's an emotional thing, isn't it? It's human to human contact that you can't beat, which is really interesting. And often the fallback, as you said, Jack, to some of these collaboration tools, they can all help. They're part of the ecosystem, but voice is around for the good. Just switching subject slightly to what I'm going to call the re-engineering cycle. So Jack, in your experience, how often do UK organisations end up actually rebuilding voice, routing, telephone numbers when platforms change? And what tends to be underestimated from this effort?
The honest answer is probably they end up rebuilding platforms as few and as far between as possible. because these are colossal changes. They are stressful, and often they may rely on legacy information within an organization. It's a bit chicken and egg. The longer we leave a platform for a refresh, the less likely we are to actually retain the knowledge that would help make us do that. That can sometimes be, for various business reasons, staff churn. It can be a little bit of scarring from migrations that maybe haven't been too smooth, and that pushes us further away from making a change again, even though what we've moved to might have caused some of those scars. So we want to do it as few times as possible, but we shouldn't let that push us into a place where we are utilizing services that are no longer fit for purpose. And often these challenges that we want to resolve, technology is ever evolving, but the challenges often stay exactly they are. Organizations need a robust platform that can scale to their business needs and is accessible for all. Those three things have never truly changed in industry. The technology's changed around it, but we still need to keep on top of those things.
Completely agree. Tom, would you echo those?
It's classic. If it's not broke, don't fix it, in all honesty. I suppose for the PSTN switch off is going to be a bit of a once in a lifetime one. But certainly organisations in healthcare, it might be 25, 30 plus years that they might change their internal telephony provision. So they might change their PBXs, or they might change from, copper to IP internally. So they might review it at that point, but then they're getting to this point now where they're going to change their external routing. They're probably not going to revisit the internal routing because that was a big problem. So it's almost as if they're both playing catch up with each other.
Yeah,
they never intertwine. It feels like, and I mean, you were just saying is that it's few and far between. But I think for us, it's even further than that, because of the fact that voice is always working. So we don't want to interfere with it, because there's a perception that if you interfere with it, you might break it, you might make it worse. And for us, then that impacts people and care instead of, any other business. It's a lot different.
Goes back to the industry, doesn't it? It's voice is such a critical form of communication that it needs to work all the time. And when something doesn't work, that's when that's when the partnership of it, with any supplier comes in, isn't it? It's how quickly do you fix it, because stuff in technology goes wrong. So we talked about over-engineering, I guess, or the re-engineering cycle. I'm going to talk about what organisations wish they'd future-proofed. And really, in your discussions with customers, Jack, what do you see the topic that most comes back from customers in terms of outcomes they want to achieve, or problems that they've got that they're looking to fix with the move to new voices, I'm going to call it, which is obviously voice through the collaboration platforms. What do you tend to see?
I think one of the things that we often see a bit of a change is internal resourcing and how that's managed. And this isn't new for the sector in terms of IT, networking, IT, end user compute. It's always been a little bit fluid as whatever technology in the market has provided and how that's managed once deployed to an estate. So I think the management of infrastructure is a thing that is changing at the moment, and probably has been for a few years. It's not brand new. This is something that maybe takes a bit of time to filter through, and certain industries tend to jump on this a bit quicker. Some who are a bit more site critical tend to be a little bit further behind, get the market sort of into its pomp before making such considerations. But assessing how much resource do we need to manage an estate ourselves, particularly things around on-premise infrastructure. What is the cost of both, the financial aspects of that and the opportunity cost in terms of, valuable resource internally? What else could be done? What could we work with a provider to achieve, given that providers often have very scalable resource and in-depth industry knowledge, things like host, manage, patch, license infrastructure, and take some of that onus away. But it's also about making sure that we don't take away too much, and this is something that we mentioned earlier, which is particularly in the realms of healthcare, fringe edge use cases, be they entry systems, alarms, telecare systems, or maybe even just having some level of on-prem infrastructure for survivability. I think that's maybe one of the challenges at the moment, is future-proofing with one foot still on the ground to make sure that we aren't forgetting some of the things that we maybe take a bit for granted?
No, I think that's really interesting point. And Tom, I guess from your side of things, your experience. So you obviously have I'm going to call it a sprawling estate, because these are very large campuses that you deal with in the hospitals, isn't it? How do you manage the kind of mix of the legacy with the new, and how you bring all that together? Is it difficult to manage? Is it, how would you like it to work, or is it working exactly as you'd like it to at the moment?
I think we're quite fortunate in that whilst everything external facing is IP, everything internal, granted we've got hybrid PBXs and we've got an IP PBX as well. The hybrid ones certainly, or the 5 that we've got, they are classic telephony PBXs. All of the functionality requires a skilled telecoms engineer to manage, and I'm fortunate that I've got 5 skilled telecoms engineers. I think that the difficulty that other healthcare organisations have got is that there's been a sort of period of, 10, 15 years where telephony maybe has branched into being part of the network team, or with collaboration platforms now it is part of that sort of EUC team. It's a little bit different, but the core functionality of a telephone does need a skilled telecoms engineer to understand, especially if you've still got bits and pieces of a legacy estate. I think there's going to come a time, don't get me wrong, in the next 5 to 10 years where those staff and those skills are going to disappear, and that can naturally become part of core IT. But there still needs to be an acceptance and understanding that you do need some expertise on sort of voice routing, of how to test and how to probe voice lines and understand how they work, because it isn't just pretend dial tone on an IP phone. There's so much more to it. Yeah, that's quite a risk, I think. Looking into the future, certainly, at least.
It is. I mean, you've got quite a complex organisation, so it requires an element of management. But I guess that's the natural trend, isn't it? Is to move more into that IT space, as you say, with the unified comms platforms, whatever the platform looks like. But I guess sometimes, particularly in your environment, that's not going to, the legacy stuff won't change. It needs to be more of a hybrid type model, I guess.
There is no real driver, in all honesty. I think that what I'd say to a lot of peers, to a lot of anyone outside industry, is that provided your connections to the outside world are SIP and you have all of your other collaboration platforms that you no doubt use internally, there's no real reason, if you've got quite a large campus-based organisation, is that you can connect that to a SIP platform, to SIP trunking, to IP-based systems, and you can maintain it still. You don't need to get rid of it wholesale. There is a bit of a misconception that the PSTN switch off is a wholesale move to IP and you've got to get rid of it all and it all needs to be IP telephony. I think that that's a good point to make.
I think that's nirvana, isn't it? Is you might have these different systems, whether it's moving to contact centres now, but part of the collaboration suite is most organisations have some form of contact centre, including you guys. I know you might have some legacy switches that deal with the crash calls like 2222 in your environment. For any local emergency calls, you might have various different collaboration platforms. So the trick really is to make the management of that, I guess, as easy as possible, and find some way of gluing it all together to integrate and to enable it to talk to each other, regardless of what the technology stack is. So yeah, that's nirvana, and obviously that's the challenge we're all going to have in the future, isn't it? Tom, interesting question here, and I think we've covered it to a certain degree. What's still in store for you from a future-proof perspective? Are there any particular areas that you want to focus on in terms of future-proofing that that you can see with innovation, or is it I'm checking the market out to see what's going on? Are there any future innovations you're looking at?
I think for us, and the conversation we've been internally, just in our team, not in the organisation, is probably splitting our strategy for what we want in the future for on-premise voice and what we want for everything else that's hybrid. Because the real difficulty we've got and the juggling act that we've got now is that you've got a knowledge worker, like you were saying earlier, a clerical member of staff that wants to be able to take calls on a Tuesday and a Wednesday, but then Thursday they might be at home or they might not. And there's a lot of difficulty there in saying, well, that requires, having a UC account and be able to point your number and having mobility of your number. But then they also want that number to be in a pickup group or a hunt group that's a core PBX feature. the difficulty we've got now is that then we have to say no to those users, because there isn't really a best of breed that covers everything at the moment. You've either got to sort of have a platform that is heavily focused around being on-prem, or you've got to have the opposite, have a real sort of cloud-based solution. And we're sort of sat at the junction between the two at the moment, and we're trying to devise what a strategy would be like for that first idea, that on-premise idea, and then a hybrid model of some sort.
Moving forward, okay, cool. Well, hopefully, being a partner of yours, that's something we might be able to help with on that, Tom. More to come, of course. I guess it's complex, isn't it, out there at the moment? It's how you choose some of these technologies to cater for the use cases as you've just described.
We've found that we get to a point where we over-engineer it, and it actually degrades the service that we're offering.
Yeah.
And then the complaint from the end user is that the technology doesn't work. But actually, it's the way in which they're using it and trying to sort of retrofit old processes and old ways of working on top of it that makes it difficult. And that's a step back straight away. We're on the back foot straight away, though.
Well, that's exactly what the topic's been, hasn't it? Is, that was seen as good enough at one point, but actually, if you take the outcome you want to achieve and you work backwards from that, there might be just a different way of doing things that actually simplifies things, reduces costs, which is one of the key drivers that you were talking about, and make everything work in a lot more effective and efficient manner. Jack, sorry, you haven't spoken for a while, so I'm coming over to you. I'm choosing you now, picking on you now. So we talked about future-proofing a little bit and obviously the re-engineering cycle, but how does decision-making change when communications foundations are properly managed or in that, in a good place? The foundations are there.
It probably just gives you a bit more in the way of options. Good decision-making for me is not necessarily focusing on, what's the adage is that perfection is the enemy of good. But there is that maybe to a degree, but it doesn't mean we don't need to not aim for perfection as such. And I think it's just about being quite aware of where we are, what we need to achieve from a business level, and not necessarily tying that to, we need to move to X technology. You don't. You need to achieve some business outcomes, and the technology will help you get there. But that doesn't mean that necessarily there is a silver bullet in the market, and this is for any organization. That doesn't necessarily mean there's a silver bullet that moving to X technology will fix everything. If you aim with that in mind, there's a decent enough chance that they might just not do that. Or, copy pasting from another organization. I think it's about understanding core business drivers internally and letting that fuel your decisions, not chasing technology or the latest wave of innovation in a contact center or a UCAS platform or a phone system, and not necessarily saying that, well, one of these has to do all these things. There's nothing wrong, and Tom, you picked up on it, that there isn't necessarily a one-size-fits-all. There might not even be a one-size-fits-all within a single technology vendor. You might be cross-threaded across different technology stacks because organizations within the UK particularly, they're quite diverse even internally.
Correct.
So business drivers of a portion of the business could be entirely different from another, and we need to treat them as such. Now, as a partner of these organizations, where we come in is making sure that we can provide the right tool for the right business unit, but they don't need to sit entirely segmented from one another. There has to be conversations around how can we make these work in a good way together. And sometimes that'll be very close-knit, sometimes it'll be slightly less, but getting to the best possible outcome is where it is worth speaking to a provider to understand how you can get there.
Yeah.
But I think the decision making at the end of the day comes from business drivers, not chasing a certain technology.
Yeah, I completely agree. Outcome-based decisions to fix problems than challenges that you've got. So, do you agree with that, Tom?
Yeah, I think that's particularly pertinent for us. Is that if you're gonna go after a specific platform or a specific technology, you have to consider the fact that there's so much nuance in the business and in your organisation, and like you were saying, with the split between the types of workers or the types of departments, is that we don't have a use case to have X amount of licenses for a collaboration platform when we've got 10,000 wall phones that serve a simple purpose. So why would we try and fix that problem when we're trying to solve another? It seems a bit foolish. So I think there is legs and there's benefit in splitting it all up and and simplifying in it all, in all honesty, and stop trying to chase the gold, the nirvana that you mentioned earlier.
Yeah, I guess different technologies for different personas within the workplace. So depending on what work is that you what the work is that you do is a good start point, isn't it? Great. Well, thank you very much, guys, for your time. That's the final episode 3, and thank you.